Hi, welcome back. You're watching Michelle with Michelle's Life. Today is my August TBR check-in number 1. So let's take a look really quick on what I said I was going to read this month by checking out this clip. So, A Little Life, I was supposed to buddy read with my friend Crystal Lynn, and I did buddy read it. I got to page 450 out of, I think there's like 800 pages. So, I got more than halfway through, and I really enjoyed Jana Cahors' writing. My problem is that one of the triggers that bothers me the most while reading is sexual abuse and rape. Another big thing for me is the abuse of children, and all of those things happened throughout this book several times. I could have handled it if it was mentioned once or twice, but she kept coming back to it and kept coming back to it, and I understand that like it's not something that just disappears in a person's life, and I think it's very important to understand and to write about these things. It was just really troubling to me, and I had a really hard time. It was making me physically depressed to read this book, and just going through the whole moving experience and reading about the horrible things that happened to one of these characters while throughout his childhood, while looking at my daughter and imagining her going out into the world. It was really hard on me. I really do love Jana Cahors' writing. I did look into possibly reading another one of her books, but she had very similar themes in that book as well. I'm not sure if it's as frequent in that book as it is in this one, but I will probably finish this at a later date. I think I could only mentally withstand half of it for now. So I definitely recommend you read this book if you've been interested in it and can handle those topics and those triggers. Unfortunately, at this time, I could not. The next book is Louis Sachar's The Sideway Stories from Wayside School. I read this and absolutely adored it. I thought it was a really interesting juxtaposition coming to this book now as an adult and relating to the adults in this book more than the students, whereas when I read it as a child, of course, I related more to the children in the book. Just the conversation that Sachar has about education in this book was really fascinating to me, and the idea of what we push on students. So like there was one story in here where a student wasn't really able to complete math equations, but he could always figure out the answer. So he wasn't able to count correctly according to our standards, but he was always able to come up with the right sum. Once the teacher teaches him the correct way to count, he's no longer able to come to the correct answer when asked a question. So it's really interesting, and I definitely look forward to reading this book to my daughter in the future, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next is Nicholas and Alexandra, and this is the non-fictional historical account of the Romanovs, and I'm still reading it, so that's why it says currently reading in that clip. I read about 50 pages so far, so now I'm at like about 200 pages into this, and I think it's probably close to, oh, it's only about 500 pages, so that's really not bad. I don't know if I'll finish it this month, but I just take 50 pages at a time whenever I can, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm still buddy reading this with Caitlin over at Zombie Eats Books. As for Truthwitch, I'm supposed to be reading this with Julie, and her channel is Girl with a Book, I think. I'll leave a link to her channel down below. We are starting this today, so I'm really excited to read it with her, but I haven't started it yet. Paper Girls, I did read, and I gave it a 3. I'm not sure why I didn't put this together, but Paper Girls, I mean like the kind of paper girls where you put on little clothes and little accessories, not that kind of paper girl. They deliver papers like a paper boy. The graphic novel takes place in the 80s, so there are a lot of retro elements to this graphic novel series, and there is also a science fiction element to the series as well. I went in not knowing much, and I think that's the best way to go about it. That was a really interesting concept, and I liked the discussion that it brought about of the different generations and our focus on technology and what that means, and it was interesting. It didn't grip me as much as some of the other graphic novels that I've been reading lately, but it was enjoyable. Next on my TBR said I was going to read Descender. I didn't like the art, so I didn't read them. I know that's really petty, but it is what it is. Alright, the next thing I finished this month was A World Without You by Beth Revis. I actually started this last month, but I put it down for a while because it was very disappointing. I, as you know, am a very big Beth Revis fan, and I don't by any means want you to think that this was a bad book. It just wasn't what I was expecting, and I was let down a little. I think my hopes might have been set a little too high. I was really excited about this. I, bought the special edition and everything. This book is about Beau, who lives in an institution, and he thinks it's kind of like the X-Men Academy for special students with special abilities. In reality, it is a mental institution for students with special needs. And we are taken inside of Beau's head, and we don't know what his diagnosis is, but we get to experience life through his eyes and his mind and his thought process, which I thought in that aspect Beth Revis did a phenomenal job of capturing that and making us feel concerned and worried and just overall sympathize with Beau. The whole time I felt really wrong about trying to diagnose Beau, and that might have just been on me. That might not have been Beth Revis, and later on in the book you do find out what his diagnosis is, but I don't know. I have a hard time talking about this. I don't want to offend anyone. So overall, I wound up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. Beau's ability is to go back in time, and he goes into his mind and is able to pull on these different threads to travel to those different times. And he thinks that he can go back in time and save his girlfriend who recently passed away. I don't want to say more than that. So this book does deal with grief and what grief looks like and feels like, and what it means to have this mental diagnosis and deal with grief, and how hard that might be. And I thought Revis did a really good job at portraying that, and there were some very beautiful quotes in this book. It didn't hit the mark with me for some reason. Next, I read Silk Volume 0 and Volume 1. And I gave both volumes 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. The only reason why it lacked a star is because the artwork constantly changed, and it was really annoying because I really like one of the artists, but I'm not a fan of really any of the other ones. So I did appreciate that all artists were female, and I thought that was really nice for the female artists to be drawing a female superhero. I really liked that. The story was really good. So Silk, also known as Cindy Moon, gets bitten by a radioactive spider just like Peter Parker. Cindy decides, after talking with her family and some scientists, to lock herself away in a bunker until the scientists can figure out a cure for getting rid of these supernatural powers. After 10 years, Cindy Moon gets out and she decides to use her powers for good, since nothing was ever solved or worked out and her parents are missing, and she's trying to solve that mystery. It's a really great graphic novel series. The art is really good in some of the issues, and the storyline is really intriguing. Cindy Moon's sense of humor is really good. It's pretty on par with Spider-Man and his cocky humor. She's definitely my new fictional crush. She's just phenomenal. Then I read the AllNew Wolverine, which is a graphic novel series about X-23, who is Wolverine's clone. She is a female Wolverine, and she has 2 of his metal claw thingies. This graphic novel I wound up giving 3 stars because it was more superhero-like, and obviously it's a Marvel graphic novel. I just like graphic novels that focus more on the character and their backstory and getting to know them more, whereas this is just more action-packed. So after finishing those graphic novels, I didn't know what to read next while waiting for my buddy read with Truly, so I picked up randomly My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This was translated by Anne Goldstein from Italian, and I have heard amazing things about this book. I really enjoyed this book. I wound up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was really fast to read. The book is also just really nicely constructed. I really like the French flaps and like the softness, and the pages are really nice and thick, and there's only like 330 pages in it, so it was really nice to read a shorter book after reading some very large books recently. This book takes place through the childhood to adolescent ages of Elena and her friend Lila. Just a look at their neighborhood and what it meant growing up in their neighborhood during the, I think it was the 50s, right outside of Naples, Italy. Elena shows us in a very real and honest way what childhood looks like and how you view your friendships and sometimes our motivations and how cold and calculating they can be. And I thought it was just a really honest view of childhood and the pressures that are put on us from society and the things that the children in this book witnessed within their community and the hatred and what growing up looked like in that kind of situation and that kind of circumstance. And just a really great look at what life was like in this town right outside of Naples in the early 1950s through a child's perspective. It seemed like Elena might have had like a diary that she used because it seemed very personal, and a lot of the thought processes that our main character Elena had were thoughts that as we get older we wouldn't necessarily admit to, or in our own mind we might have altered to not think that we thought so selfishly as children, when in reality we probably did. I really enjoyed her voice in this. It was really enjoyable, and I really look forward to picking up the next book. I have really been enjoying literary fiction lately. I really like books that are written with self-reflection as one of the main threads throughout. I really enjoyed the way that Elena as a character looked at these certain situations and thought about why she acted these ways and about what other people must have been thinking while things were happening. And it's something that I like to practice in my life daily. I always look back at past events. You can't just dismiss your past. It is who you are currently, and I just really like that theme in books, and this definitely hit that for me. So I really enjoyed it, and I will be picking up the next novels in the future. So that was a super long wrap up. Anyway, let me know down below what your favorite book has been so far this month, or if you've read any of these and you want to discuss them, definitely come talk to me in the comments. And that's it. Thank you for liking, watching, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!